everyone and welcome back to my channel. I thought I was going to be posting more consistently when I got home because I'd have so much more time on my hands, but the universe said otherwise. So today we're going to talk about life updates, things that have just been going on for me over the last basically this whole year, because I feel like I've spoken about certain things and you kind of all know what's going on, but I think I just want to sit down and just talk. It might be cathartic for me, I don't know, or it could be absolutely traumatizing. So I'm going to do my base makeup because I'm planning to just film some content because I am bored, and I find that I'm saying I'm bored but then I just stay sitting in front of the couch. So I decided, since the weather is really nice, it's really sunny, that I'm just going to do my base makeup and then do some really fun makeup for TikTok. So that's what we're doing right now. It's currently 20 to 5 in the evening as well when I'm doing this. So I'm going to be putting it on to take it off essentially, but I feel like that's what I do with my makeup a lot of the time, is I just put it on, do some content, or go out and do the bit and then come home and take it all off. So this isn't any different for me. So obviously, since December of last year, I think everyone is well aware that I was living abroad. I'm obviously not living abroad now. This is my childhood bedroom because my bedroom currently doesn't have a bed in it because my mum was selling the house and was getting rid of things that weren't needed. She got rid of it 2 days before I broke my ankle. So I feel like I'm skipping forward. I'm going to go back to when I moved in December. I had a really hard transition period with moving. I really if I hadn't had Sean, I would have completely crumbled. He was my rock. And he did it for a few weeks without me. And I genuinely don't know how he did it, because I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. But he was amazing and did it all himself, got us all set up. So when I came over, my life was very easy. I went through a period of feeling useless because I didn't have a job. Sean was going to work every day because he had started work already. So he had places to be, whereas I didn't. He had things to do and people to see, whereas I didn't. So that made it, sorry, I'm just going to move the mirror here so it's a bit closer so I can see. But it was hard for me not having a purpose. I think particularly with my mental health, I managed to whack off one of my nails without realising it. Fabulous. Sugar, I don't know where it went. Yeah, that's a future Jordan's problem. She'll deal with that in a while. But Sean basically had a purpose and I felt I didn't have one, and with my OCD and my mental health, that really just didn't work for me. It was, I need to have a purpose, I need to feel needed, I need to feel like I have a reason to wake up in the morning, because your girl struggles with her mental health. So I found that routine and not doing the same thing every day but being productive in any aspect really helps. And I found that where we were living, because it was so far out, it was a 40-minute train to Amsterdam city centre, but you also had to cycle in to the train station in our town. So we were a 14-minute cycle out from the town, even just the town we were staying in. Anytime we got Ubers back, they were always confused, being like, "Ye live here?" And I was like, "Yeah, we live here. We do, yeah." But we were in a very fortunate position because a lot of people in the Netherlands, when they first get there, end up having to live in hostels, and we were very lucky that we didn't have to for the 3 months that I was there. So basically, January 16th, yes, because it was the day before my niece's birthday. I had obviously started working, and me and Sean were on opposite shifts because the place that we work in basically the same place, owned by the same people, but they're separate. They keep couples that are in the business separate. So Sean was working in a separate place to me. and he was on opposite shifts because I would be primarily doing the 9 to 5s, whereas he was doing the 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. So like even when I had a job and I had a purpose, me and Sean still never had that much time together other than our days off, which look is normal for any couple. But when your only support system is each other, it's very hard then to like do anything, because you're like, I'm not going to go anywhere without Sean, but Sean's working, so I'll just go home straight after work and chill at home for like 6 hours and then go to bed. And then it was just hard, and Sean felt this too. Like, it's not easy, and we never expected it to be easy moving. Like, it was never going to be simple. It was never going to be all plain sailing. That was never going to happen. And as someone who likes certainty on things and that everything's going to be okay, yeah, that was hard. So yeah, I went on a tangent there. But on the 16th of January, Sean had started work at 5 and I had finished work at 5, so I was on the way home. I got my train. I had gotten onto my bike because I was terrified of cycling over there because it's really, really daunting. I will not lie about that. It is a very daunting experience. And if you haven't done it before, because I know like majority of people can cycle, or this is annoying me, majority of people can cycle or have cycled a bike before, but you should have to do a test for how they cycle bikes over there, because you're not just watching your lanes if there's any cyclists coming against you or in front of you or behind you. You're watching the pedestrians, and are they crossing the road? Can you actually cycle because they're currently crossing? And then there's cars, so like it's all in it. So it's people should have to do a test. Me included. Everyone should have to do some form of test to be allowed to cycle a bike there. But it's the mode of transport, and I was just really trying to lean into it. Like, Sean would have cycled a bike at home anyway, not all the time, but he would have a lot more cycling experience than I would. So I was doing fine on the bike. I felt I was getting faster and I was getting better at like understanding it. And then the minute I felt like I got some semblance of understanding and felt a bit better about our situation, like I stopped talking to people at home and everything because, sorry, not talking, but like my mum and my sisters would message me and I'd take like a day or two to respond, because I was like, if I don't respond, they won't know how shit I'm feeling, so they won't know that like, if I spoke to them and they were like, come home, I would have been like, I'm coming home. But like, I didn't want to let my anxiety and my OCD, like, which has ruled so much of my life, to rule the one big decision I finally kind of made for myself. That wasn't like, it was the first time I'd made like a really big decision, I felt, about my life, and I just wanted to see it through. So cycling away home, it was not the first day, but it was like, I feel good, like I'm settling in at work, everything is going well. And I was cycling up a cycle lane, and I was on the right side of the road where I should have been. I was doing all the correct things. I saw this car coming to pull out of a industrial park, and I was like, sure, like, he's going to see me, he will see me and he will stop. Long story short, he didn't see me, nor did he stop. So I just remember just feeling the force of the car hitting me and me ending up with the bike on top of me and on the road. And there was some really, really lovely people who stopped and helped me. I don't even know, not that I don't know their names, I do know their name. I know one of their names, but I don't know it in full. So I haven't been able to find them since to thank them. But like, I wouldn't have made it through. Sorry, I'm trying to find a brush. I wouldn't have made it through that if it wasn't for them, because Sean was at work, so I was chilling like on my own, and like, he, as I said, where we work was very far away from where we live. So like, when I rang him to say I have gotten hit by a car, it took him over an hour to get to me. Which was scary, but the people that I was with were so kind and so helpful that it made that experience, that already traumatic experience, less traumatic. So they came, I rang Sean. Sean was coming. I knew he was on the way, and they rang an ambulance and they rang the police because obviously there has to be police reports done and all that. I just remember feeling like I couldn't breathe because I found this out after, but the handlebar of the bike actually went into my throat and like crushed my larynx. So I had a bruised larynx and it was painful, but it was okay. But I had just like bruises all over my body. My body hurt everywhere, was sore. And I had to take a week off work. So I'd only been working, I think, 2 weeks at this point. So to then have to take a week off work, I'd lost my income because obviously I wasn't there long enough, so they weren't going to pay me to be at home sick. And I had to take a week off. And I was traumatized at the thought of getting back on the bike. Like, it was really scary. But I was like, it's the only way I can get to and from work, especially when I was being moved to like the later evening shifts, because the later shifts where we were living, there was no direct route through buses or trains at 1 a.m. So if you didn't get home that way, you had to get home cycling. So I had to get back on the bike, get back to work, and I was kind of getting back into my routine. I was getting into working. I was really I wouldn't say I was enjoying it because it's not what I'm qualified to do, but I felt, yes, I was working and I was making money and like it made mine and Sean's life better there because we both had money, but it wasn't like my dream job or anything. But there was one evening then where Sean forgot his keys for work, which he needed to lock up because he was the person put it on for lockup. So I then had to leave our lovely warm place and go cycle, and this was in the midst of the really bad snow that Amsterdam had in January. So I cycled, I think, 20 minutes. That was my first time after getting back on the bike after. So I cycled to Sean and managed to get there, and I was very proud of myself because I was like, I'm being so resilient doing this really amazing thing, because I'd told him that I was going to get an Uber to where he was, give him his keys, get an Uber, go back. But I was like, I'm going to be an absolute legend and I'm going to cycle there myself and surprise him. So I cycled to surprise him and I went the wrong way. So I got lost. I ended up being further away from him than I needed to be. So then I had to go all the way back to where I was meant to be. And it was like -2 degrees. I was frozen, even though I was fully equipped, fully dressed, multiple layers, but frozen. So got the keys to him. That was fine. Then I was like, okay, now I have to cycle home. So cycled home. Went the way that Sean told me to go. Ended up getting lost. Not getting lost, actually, that was a lie. Before that, I fell. I was cycling down this hill and I thought I was in a curb. Not in a curb, I thought I was on the road. And then all of a sudden I was in the ditch. And it was like there had been this like gap on the inside of the curb that like the wheel slid along and I just fell off to the side. Now thankfully that was fine because it was controlled and it was like I landed on grass, so I was safe. And then I had to cycle the rest of the way home, and Google Maps took me up this, like, we lived on a place that had a lot of land, so it took me up that area of the back of the land, so like I could see it. I cycled the whole way in being like, where is it? Where is it? And like by cycle I mean the roads were icy, so I had to get off the bike and carry the bike with me and walked the whole way in to be like, this doesn't look familiar. I got to the end. It was not familiar because I was at the very back of it. I was on their land technically, and I was at the place, but it was the field behind where I was living. So I had to go all the way back out then and came home. So that was my second disaster on the bikes. Fell and got lost. So now we're up to the big one. The reason we're here. Talking about it's actually kind of scary, and I don't know why. But it was my first like evening shift with Sean. So he was like, we'll cycle together in and we'll cycle back together so that you can like get used to the cycle and have someone with you going both ways. And I was like, perfect. Obviously not perfect. It was an hour and a half cycle, but I was like, this is what we gotta do to get to work, so we're gonna do it. So cycled. We had been cycling for like, I want to say an hour and 20, an hour and 15 minutes. We'd been cycling for a long, long time. We were nearly at work. We were in Amsterdam. So we were very, very close, which makes this just so much worse, how close we were to like me succeeding and doing something that I was really scared to do, because I had been so anxious at the thought of, number one, getting back on the bike, and then number two, having to cycle it for such a long distance when I'd only cycled it for a short distance and managed to get hit by a car. I was terrified that the same thing was going to happen, but just on a bike instead. And lo and behold, it did. Now, this is no one's fault but my own. Like, this accident was caused by no one else but me. So we were cycling, doing really well cycling. Like, Sean was like, your resilience is crazy. You're doing so amazing, sweetie. And that all came very abruptly to an end. I don't even know where the street was. I don't know where I was. But I remember coming around this corner and thinking, I'm way too close to this curb right now. And I do not really have time to sort it. So I didn't have time to react, really. So because 1 minute I was upwards on the bike, feeling that I was like, this is a bit off. I probably should move, to just hearing the bell of my bike just like crashing, and me on the floor. I'm gonna try not to get upset because it was terrifying. So I just remember looking up and just being on the floor and shouting for Sean, because Sean had been ahead of me. So I shouted for him to come back, being like, you need to ring an ambulance right now, like I need one right now. And like, if anyone knows me, I can be dramatic. So like, there was one time my sister's dog, I put something in her postbox and the dog bit me, and I rang Sean being like, I am bleeding, it is so bad. And he came down like expecting like a wound, and it was like a little cut. So he thought, she's obviously just hit herself a bit hard and is in a bit in shock, so like she'll be fine once I get to her and, you know, sort her out. But he came up to me and saw, I haven't asked him, but I'm assuming what he saw was my ankle lying on the side and I couldn't move it. At first I genuinely thought it was a sprain. I was obviously going to have to go to hospital. I was going to miss work, but I was going to be fine. It was just a little like a little sprain. I don't know why I thought that or how I thought that looking back, and feel like I can remember the pain so vividly of it. It's horrifying to me looking back on it, because it was so scary. I just had Sean around me, and then I found there's another person that came over and started helping. A police car happened to be driving past, so they stopped and got out. Then more police stopped, because I was literally just on the side of the road because we were waiting for the ambulance to come. And I just kept thinking, I need to get out of here. Like, I was on the ground like this, like with like a what do they call it? Those things that they put on people that are in shock. Those blankets. So they put that on me, and there was this random passerby who stopped, and he was really funny. I'm not going to lie, because I've never seen the movie Bring It On, but I constantly, when Sean says, ooh, it's cold, I'll go, ooh, or like, brr, it's cold in here. Do you know the thing in the atmosphere? I've never seen that movie, but I constantly say it. So when I said that I was cold, that fella just went, "Brr, it's cold." And I was like, "You were sent by an angel from heaven. You were sent by an angel to come to me because they knew I'd get you." So him and Sean and the two female police officers were standing over me, holding the blanket down, and like time just slowed down. It just wouldn't. I was just constantly being like, "Is the ambulance here? Yeah, is the ambulance?" Because one thing about Dutch is they are quite fast at things. So like, you'll ring for an ambulance in Ireland, you could be waiting depending on, like, I could have been waiting hours depending on how busy they were. Whereas I was waiting like 15-20 minutes, but that felt like a really long time for like Dutch standards. So I was like, are they ever coming? What is happening? I cannot move my leg. And I need to get out of here. So we need to sort that out. So about 5-10 minutes later, the ambulance people turned up, and I need to bless that woman. That woman is a saint. She was amazing. The amount of stuff I said to her, I'm embarrassed for me, but she was so helpful and so lovely. But they came and they saw my ankle on the ground, and she was like, "Okay, honey, we're going to have to move you, but your ankle is out of place, so we're going to have to try get you up. But you can't move your ankle in any way, shape or form. It has to stay exactly where it is." I was like, "Oh, fab. Great." So yeah, managed to get into the vehicle, and they were not going to move me until they were able to get the bones back into place. So if you're a bit squeamish, don't listen to this. So basically what they do is, because I've never had a broken bone or a dislocated bone or anything of the sort in my life. So it was like, she was like, "We're going to give you ketamine or skeletamine or something like that. It's like a more controlled and safer version of ketamine." So I was like, "Okay." And she was like, "You're going to feel a bit weird, and it's going to basically, it was like a sedative that would like help me not feel the pain, but I was conscious at the same time. So like, I do not remember the physical pain of them popping my ankle back into place, but I do remember everything that was going on around me. I kept feeling like I was going to pass out, and I felt like I needed to just scream, and like she was like, "Scream all you want." So I remember the screaming, I remember the shouting, I remember shouting "fuck, fuck, 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 fuck" over and over again, and her being like, "You're doing great, you're doing amazing, sweetie." And she was like rubbing my hand, because like, I was out of control of my body with the ketamine, skeletamine, whatever it was called. I was out of the control. I wasn't in full control of my faculties. So I don't like that. I don't like to feel like that, especially when I don't know how long it's gonna last. I know obviously they're the doctors. They know, well, not doctors, but they're the nurses. They know what to do. They know that it's fine. What they're giving me is fine. But my brain doesn't know that. So I found it very difficult not knowing when this was going to end. But then after it, I felt fab. I felt unreal. I felt like I could take on the world after it. And it wore off so quickly. I just genuinely don't know how. Like, 1 minute I was feeling nothing, and then like I was feeling pain, but not to the extent I had been, because obviously my bone was put back into place. And they took me to the hospital and were like, "We have to x-ray you, and if you are from Ireland or any other country that has a terrible health system, you would have thought I would have been in there for the rest of my life because of the time it would have taken to do everything that they did." But I was in and out in under like 3 hours, cast applied, x-rayed done, was told I was okay to leave, like everything sorted within 4 hours, which is crazy. So they x-rayed, and which I found weird, the paramedics actually went into the suite that they were doing the x-raying to look at the stills. I don't know, was that more for me because she came out immediately from it, because like I was sitting there watching them all x-raying me. They were all in there waiting for the stills to come up, and I just heard "ooh," and I had a male nurse look at me and just went, as if like, "Yeah, it's all fine." And I was like, "Great, it's broken probably, and it's not badly broken. I won't need surgery." So I came out of that room. The woman, bless her, came up to the side of me and was like, "It is a very bad break. I am so sorry." And I was like, "Okay, fabulous." Why did that male nurse just smile and put a thumbs up at me as if like I was going to walk out of here that evening? But we move. I'd say he was probably trying to make me not panic. But they told me, they were like, "You will need surgery. There's no other way around it. You have broken all the bones in your ankle that support your ankle, so your ankle can no longer support itself. It's called a trimelioral fracture. So they were like, you can either have the surgery here or you can go home to do it. It just genuinely depends on what you want to do." Now, I could have gotten the surgery over there, and it probably would have happened that day or the following day. But me and Sean haven't had no support system over there. I hadn't even been in my job a month. Like, I was not going to get paid any sick pay from my place because I had been working there 29 days, not 30. So they were able to fire me. Well, not fire me. They had to take me off their books, which, look, it is what it is. It's not their fault. Like, there's nothing they could do about it. Like, they're looking at it from a business perspective for themselves. So they decided that I was no longer going to be employed by them. And I then knew that, like, there was no other choice. Like, I couldn't stay because that would have put so much pressure on Sean. It would have put so much pressure on me to get better. It would have just put pressure on everything. And I wasn't dealing with the guilt that if I came home, I would have a support system here. Sean would still be able to work without having to worry about me relatively enough. Like, I was in safe hands, and he could still work and keep our life going there, so that when I recovered, I could just come straight back and nearly like slot back in to our life that we had going on. So I came home, I think it was 4 or 5 days after the accident, and the following day, me and my mum went up to the Mercy Urgent Care Clinic. I still had the cast from over on at that point, so we went over there to speak to them, to be like, what the fuck do we do? Because Ireland's healthcare system just isn't great. Like, I could tell them that I need emergent surgery or some form of surgery, and they might say, yeah, in 10 months you'll get said surgery. So there's that. But that's not what happened for me, thank the Lord. So I was brought into the Mercy Clinic. They referred me on to the CUH because they were like, we don't deal with it after this. We don't, like, once we have your scans done and sent to them, that's kind of us done. So they sent me to the CUH the following day, and I was told by this nurse the night before when I was in the Mercy Urgent Care, and she's an absolute godsend for telling me. She was like, don't be surprised if they turn around to you tomorrow and say, we'll do your surgery. She was like, I'd be fasting from the night before if I was you and have a bag packed and be ready, because like they might turn around and do it, and if you haven't, and if you've eaten, they can't. So go in giving yourself basically the best chance possible to get the surgery. So I went in, they cut my cast off. Oh my god, the feeling of the air on my leg was like heaven. So they cut it off, and he had said, like, if the swelling is down enough on your leg, we'll do the surgery today. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't expect this, but okay. So my swelling had gone down more than enough, which was amazing. And they were like, we'll do your surgery today. So then I had to hang out in CUH for like 4 or 5 hours with no bed, no room, just sit there with my cast. Like, they cut the cast, right? And I know obviously it was for support for my leg, and like they obviously had to cut it to see what was in there. But then to put my cast back together, what they did was they just got like 2 pieces of, not 2 pieces, but they got tape, and they basically, because they'd cut it down, I'll show you my leg, they'd cut it down here, so they just placed one part of it on top of the other and just left it like that. And I had to sit there like that I was in the hospital from like 7 a.m, 8 a.m. and my surgery happened, I think it was at like 11 or 12. So it wasn't too bad, but like the sitting in the chairs that they have in the CUH, or just any hospital chair in general, is not conducive for keeping your leg elevated for a surgery. And that's just the facts. It's not. So there was a woman assigned to stay with me for the whole day. And bless her, she did. And she was like, this is not fair. Like, you are clearly in pain. Like, so she got me moved somewhere else. There was people all over the hospital trying to find me because I kept being moved from place to place. But long story short, got the surgery. They were very, very happy with my progress post-surgery. I was meant to stay overnight. But then I had to ring my mum then that evening to be like, they're actually sending me home. I don't know why. But I'm being sent home, so come and get me. So my mum came and got me. I went home that evening. And I've been home ever since. And that was... I think my surgery was 5 weeks ago yesterday. Yeah, it was 5 weeks ago yesterday. So I was in a soft cast for the first 2 weeks. Then I had to go back up. They removed my sutures and then put me in a plaster cast for 2 weeks. But it was meant to be for 4. But your girl, basically, I'm getting into probably the hardest part of this now. Because, yeah, all these like accidents and mishaps were all really, really traumatic, of course. But I had kind of like made my peace with what was going on, what was happening to me, that like, just get on with it, like, get over it. You'll be back with Sean as soon as possible, and everything will be fine. And then my grandmother, this is going to be hard. My grandmother, I got a phone call off my aunt 2.5 weeks ago, to say that my granny had passed away. She's the last grandparent I have. I'm very fortunate, as people keep telling me, to have had my grandparents for as long as I did. And while that is true, I am very, very grateful that at the age of 27, I've just lost my last grandparent. But I think it makes it harder because I know her. I've known her for 28 years. Like, I feel like when you're a child, if your grandparent dies when you're a child, it's not that you forget them, but you can feel like you remember them, but you don't know them. I know my grandmother. I know her so well. And for her to not be sick, for nothing to have happened, for this to happen, for me to not even think she was sick. Like, she wasn't. There was, like, she was just your general, not old person sick, but you know, as people get older, they get more ailments, they get sicker. These things happen. It's just a natural way of life, and I understand that. But there's not, like, every grandparent that I've had that's passed, there's been a precursor to the death. There's been like, you all need to start gathering now because it's going to happen soon. With this, it was completely out of nowhere, completely out of the blue, and I just felt like I was like, I'm just being kicked while I'm down. Like, I can't even describe it. Like, my grandmother, she meant the world to me. She was an amazing woman, a hard woman, as many Irish grand people can say about their grandparents. Irish grandparents are hard. They had to grow up in a very hard life, compared to what we have. But it was very hard. And then, obviously, I'm not going to get into too much of my family life, but there's just stuff that goes on my side of the family. Like, it's hard to be around everyone, and then to be around everyone in such terrible circumstances doesn't help either. And then having a broken leg and trying to maneuver and like get around wasn't great. And it put a lot of pressure on my leg. So I went from being inside the house constantly to having to be out and to be seen and people to talk to, and having to talk about my grief and about my grandmother, which I frankly didn't want to, because I just wanted to kind of shut that off. I kept trying to convince myself that it wasn't true, that it hadn't happened, but it obviously has, and it's set in now. But to have to then meet with people and all of them tell you how amazing she was, when you know how amazing she was, you know, like, she was my grandmother, I know, but it was a very difficult few weeks. She passed away now. What week are we in? 2 weeks ago on Monday she passed away. So there was that. So I was out of the house a lot for the funeral, and I felt the pressure on my leg, not just from the grief and from the sadness and from like being emotional just myself, but also from not having somewhere to elevate my leg properly all the time, and it just was really, really hard. So that Saturday night I was at home, and then my sister was here in the house, and I just remember feeling fierce like heat up the back of my leg. Like there was no precursor to it. It was just completely random, just up the back of my leg. And my granny, and I felt like, not that she was sending me a sign, but it was like, okay, my granny has a history of blood clots. Her dad's side of the family would have a history of blood clots. So when you hear that your leg is getting warm and there's no kind of reason behind it, you start to think, okay, maybe this is a blood clot. So I rang CUH to be like, look, this is my symptoms currently. What do you advise that I do? And she was like, well, we can't give you advice over the phone. It could be a clot, so we need you to come up to get seen, just for peace of mind. And I was like, great. Saturday night spent in A&E. And that's exactly where my night was spent. I went up there, my sister, bless her, brought me up. And we went up, I think, at about 9 o'clock that night. And I didn't get home till 5:30 the following morning. And you may think, Jesus, Jordan, you must have gotten loads done, or like you must have been seen. Like, no. What happened was I went in, told them my symptoms, told them my family history, and waited 8 hours for them to test my blood to tell me that there was no markers for infection or no markers for a blood clot. Which obviously is amazing news, but if you're after sitting in those chairs for 8 hours with no proper elevation for my leg, when they could clearly see I had a broken leg, it took my sister asking for a pillow for me to get a pillow to put my leg up on, which I thought was ridiculous when you could see my leg. But anyway, that was fine, no blood clot. But then had to go up and get my cast changed again, because they were like, it could be something on the skin, so we'll just send you to the fracture clinic for them to change your cast. So then I had to go up and get my cast changed again. And that is the series of unfortunate events of my life over the last couple of weeks I've dealt with. And like, you'd think like I'd get a break maybe, but it's just been non-stop. I went from one grief, which was like grieving the life that I had away from Ireland. Because I was just starting to enjoy it. I was just starting to be like, okay, not that I can see why we had the dream, but yeah, I can kind of see why we had the dream now, because things are getting better. Our lives are getting better. My mental health was getting better. I was getting more confident. Like, I was getting, like, normally if I'd been at home and I'd fallen off that bike here, I wouldn't have ever got back on a bike. I would have never considered getting back on a bike again. But because of being there, I knew I had to, so I was doing the hard things that I would have never pushed myself to do when I was at home. And I was grieving losing all that side of myself, of like losing this massive, like, as me and my boyfriend call it, Khloe Kardashian resilience that I built up. But it was just, it's been a wild 2-3 months of my life, and I did not expect my 2026 to be going this way so far. But like, when I look back on it, but when I look and I'm like, there was obviously a reason I had to be home, and not necessarily injured, but had to be home. And that was obviously to be around for when my grandmother passed, which I was so grateful that I was here when it happened, that I could be here when it happened, because the next time I was planning to be home was April, which was for her 80th. So I wouldn't have been home for 6 months before I saw her. Obviously I didn't get to see her before she passed. Which breaks my heart a little bit, that the last time I saw her was the week the day before I flew out was the last time I saw her because we went for lunch. And that was the last time I saw her, which it's hard to compartmentalise and look at it and be like, it's hard to understand, especially because we still don't know how she passed, because she was found on her own, so they had to do a post-mortem on her, which upsets me so much, but like I understand why they have to do it, but it's just, we as her family, I feel like I can't fully grieve until I know what happened. Don't know, am I weird for that, but I just don't see how I could move on. Not move on, but like, yeah, move on and get over it without knowing. So that is the story of my life the last couple of weeks. It has been crazy. It's been wild. It's been scary. But I'm just trying to focus on the positives. I'm just trying to make the most of this time that I have at home to just like focus on me and myself and be the best version of myself that I can be to go back out to Amsterdam again, because the hope is, because I have a year of absence from work, so the hope is once I recover that I can go back over. But it depends how long recovery is looking at, because it's looking like it's going to be a minimum of 3 months before I'm back up on my feet. Now we're 2 months into it, but they were saying like 3 months from my last appointment. So like it was looking like June. So I'm missing the tulip season, but hoping to be back there in June and then be able to have like the most amazing summer, maybe go see different parts of Europe and make it into like a working holiday to use the rest of my year up and be like a really exciting experience. So that is the story of my life. My base makeup is done. I have not touched my eyes or fully done my lips because I want to do the eyes before that, but this is the finished base makeup. I'm absolutely obsessed, and go to my TikTok to see what look I'm creating because I'm really, really excited for it. And thank you guys for watching, and thank you for all your like well wishes and hoping that I'm doing okay, and like all my community on Instagram and TikTok and everyone who's been kind of like looking out for me and making sure I'm okay and checking in on me. It's amazing to have such a community. Like I have people from all over the world messaging me, and it's just really lovely and it's really sweet, and it's 100% brightened the days that have been a lot harder for me, and I just want you to know I really appreciate it, and I love you all so much, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.